Hello, hello. On today's episode of the Soul Sister Spotlight, we've got our co-founder, Renata. So this is a special episode. Hi, Renata. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm good, all good.
Great to have you here. Renata, Jeannie, and I have been working together for a while, started this community together. So it's a very special homecoming episode today where we come full circle and let's get the community meet you, Renata. You started university studying journalism. How did you end up becoming a visual designer in crypto from a university degree in journalism?
Yeah, it's a funny story actually. I was a pretty talented writer and storyteller when I was in high school. I used to love creative writing and I was studying in the languages and humanities department. So at the time, it kind of felt like a natural match with journalism. However, halfway through the bachelor's degree, I realized I was in the wrong place. Journalism wasn't the creative playground that I had imagined. It felt too reactive, too restrictive, and also the professional landscape in Portugal was and still is very, very challenging. So I needed creative freedom and a way to build things to impact people in a positive and dynamic way. But I kept pushing and I eventually graduated in journalism. But then I decided to take some time to reflect. Meanwhile, I got a dream gig at the chocolate store where I actually worked for 3 years. Even after I decided to go on with a master's in design and multimedia and literally transitioned from a faculty of languages and humanities to an informatic engineering department. That led to 7 years of working in graphic design, web design, some UX UI as well, mainly in the Web2 space. I got to experiment with a lot of things, including designing a pet accessory collection. But the big opportunity came early last year when I finally broke into Web3, a whole new world for me that I'd been curious about for a long time. And I was lucky enough to find great people along the way. And yeah, here we are.
Here we are. Amazing. I want to circle back to the chocolate store work, and that's very important. Did you have unlimited access to chocolate in that job?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I
Okay.
could have hot chocolate for snack time every day.
That is a big step. If I were working in a chocolate shop and I had unlimited access to chocolate, I don't know if I would have left, especially for a messy industry like Web3. Do you think that your journalism training gave you an edge as a designer? Does this storytelling angle show up, for example, in your approach to visuals?
That's a very job interview question. I wouldn't say it gives me like an edge, at least in the traditional sense, but I think it really gives me like a unique context that probably isn't very common in the design field. That background obviously stays with me, especially when it comes to research and the discovering phases of the design process. I find the research phase is often undervalued and overlooked, but for me is the essential bedrock for everything that follows. So journalism gave me the tools to ask the right questions and to maintain a critical mindset. As for storytelling, it's definitely present. I use it to keep the brand narrative logical and consistent as well. If the structure beneath the design isn't sound, the visual result will hardly be solid. It also comes down to a true commitment with a strong design system. You can just rely on good vibes or a style guide that sits in a PDF. It really has to be like a living, breathing set of constraints with mass adoption by the whole team, because the brand should have its own language. And if you change your vocabulary, your tone, your grammar every time you speak, people will eventually stop listening because they can't build a mental map of who you are. So yeah, a well-maintained design system is the only way to scale that kind of experience without losing your brand's true identity along the way.
You did SheFi season 14. And for those of you who don't know, SheFi is a program, an educational program and a community for women trying to break into crypto. What was your experience like with SheFi and how did it shape the way you think about Web3?
Shi-Fi came at the perfect time for me, I'd say. I've been in Web3, as I already said, for about a year and a half now, so I'm still pretty fresh in the space. And I was at that stage where I had done my own reading and investigation, but the information was so fragmented that it still didn't fully click. And then Shi-Fi happened, and it was great. It was like having someone open the door I'd been staring at for a long time. And the thing is, no matter how much you research on your own, Web3 can be very frustrating for someone coming from Web2 like myself, mainly because the concepts are often explained in ways that don't quite connect with our existing mental models. So Shi-Fi was great. It gave me context, simplified the complex, connected the dots that I already had here.
You've described your focus as moving from graphic design to UX and UI to tackle crypto and Web3's biggest problem, usability. What is the most frustrating UX pattern that you see in crypto apps right now?
The onboarding. The onboarding. Most Web3 platforms are built by people who already understand blockchain concepts, specific mechanics, and so on. Right now, the average onboarding experience in Web3 apps is like asking someone to learn how to build a car engine to actually drive the car. Most users are non-technical, and we can't expect them to understand all the technical jargon even before they can even interact with the actual product. So I think it's a massive barrier to entry and a complete failure in terms of cognitive load. If we want mass adoption, the onboarding process shouldn't feel like a tech exam. It should feel like a seamless, intuitive experience. And I think that's it, the onboarding.
I agree. I agree with you completely. I think that there's still a long way for us to get the onboarding process right. But right now, if you join crypto as a newbie, as somebody coming from Web 2, it basically feels, as you said, you have to build an engine or you have to write a thesis, that you don't know anything about in Latin, and then write your password on a piece of paper and keep it there after years and years of listening to never put your password on a piece of paper and stick it under your keyboard. So it's very frustrating and it's very hard for us to onboard our mothers, our kids, non-technical people from Web 2. I agree with you completely that this is something that we should be focusing on a lot. You've been a part of a couple of crypto project rebrands. That's something else that we see a lot in crypto, rebranding. What do you feel is harder? Is it harder to build a brand from scratch, or is it harder to get what you already have, what already exists, and evolve that to what it needs to be?
I'd say building a brand from scratch is exciting because you have total freedom to create its personality, its own, whatever. However, evolving an existing brand is, in my modest opinion, much, much harder because when you update a brand, you must understand why the original community loved the brand, identify what doesn't work or what is broken, and then modernize it without upsetting these long-time OG users. So it's kind of a juggle between respect and the actual change because you need enough familiarity so users don't feel lost, but also enough change to solve the identified old problems. So I think a rebrand is more complex than starting at zero, but it teaches you the most about the brand's core and true values.
I just woke up today to a new icon for the Spotify app, and Spotify is something that I use on a daily basis, and I really love it. I was very, very fond of the Spotify logo and the Spotify icon, and then I wake up and I see this butt ugly icon. I think they tried to kind of like replicate the liquid glass thing on the iPhone, but it's ugly, and now I'm frustrated. Has the app changed? No. Has the service changed? Absolutely not. But I'm very frustrated about this new icon. So I get what you say about not upsetting people and kind of like fixing things that are not broken per se. So I agree with you with what you're saying, and I can see how rebranding and evolving an existing brand could be much more challenging. You are, as everybody knows, you are the designer of the Soul Sisters group and a Soul Sisters community. How did you shape the Soul Sisters visual identity? What feeling were you trying to create?
We already had strong visual cues of what we wanted to see in the Soul Sisters. So from there, I wanted the identity to feel welcoming above all, but not soft. I wanted to keep, of course, the feminine vibe in a delicate way. The whole goal here was to create something that felt like a safe space to learn, but also credible, a community you'd be proud to be a part of. Every visual decision, from the color palette to the typography, was made with that intention in mind, to be approachable, feminine, but also reliable and trustworthy.
And I would say fierce. This is the vibe that I get. We claim our space in the industry. What have you personally gained from being in a women-only crypto community? Is there something that these communities give you?
Honestly, I think I gained the confidence to take up space. I'm pretty new here, but I think it's common in a lot of Web3 environments to be there, like an unspoken pressure to already know everything. And if you ask the wrong question, then you'll risk looking dumb or being dismissed. In Soul Sisters, that pressure doesn't exist, or I hope it doesn't exist. We are all here to support and empower each other, and the more women in crypto, the merrier. I heard someone say once in my interview.
That's true. That's true. The one thing that I have been thinking about lately, and I noticed, is that you notice that there's no need for moderation. Nobody is being rude, misbehaving. And if somebody kind of like sneaks in and does some misbehaving, the rest of the community goes, hey, hold on, this is not how we behave here. As somebody who, as you said yourself, you recently came from Web 2 into Web 3, if another woman wants to make that crossing but feels intimidated for one reason or another, would you encourage her or?
Of course, I'd say if you're scared, do it scared, because for graphic design, the skills transfer more than people think. I mean, the learning curve is real, but it's something that you can learn with time, and probably best to learn by experience and by actually being there. And the space desperately needs designers that understand people, not just the technology. Of course, find a community. Trying to learn Web3 in isolation is unnecessarily hard. There are spaces built specifically to make that transition easier. And I happen to know just the perfect one.
It wouldn't be Soul Sisters, would it?
Oh, yes. How did you know?
Jump in, do it scared, ask the stupid questions, don't do it alone. If you could redesign one thing about the Solana ecosystem's user experience, what would that be?
The freaking onboarding.
And another, the onboarder.
Yes.
Favorite design tool that you cannot live without?
Oh, Figma. Hands down. No competition there.
Best piece of creative advice you have ever received?
If you get stuck or having a creative block, just go see things live. Go for a walk, step aside from the computer, just see things.
Touch some grass, pet a dog.
Yeah.
If Solana was a movie, which one would it be?
I'd say probably Pulp Fiction. Multiple things happening at the same time, a loyal cult of following, and you're never quite sure about what's happening next, but it eventually makes sense at the end.
But it's going to work out, right?
Yeah,
You just know it's going to work out. Amazing. Yeah. Love that. Solana's Pulp Fiction. Absolute cinema indeed. What is next for Renata? Where do you want to take your design career, and where do you see yourself a year from now?
Renata has been specializing in UX UI for the last few years, so I have a ton of knowledge stored, ready to be put in practice. But I also love designing for marketing content, so I love to be able to do both, trying to balance the marketing and the product side of things.
I hope you still keep doing the marketing design, because I don't know where we would be without you. Thank you so much for being with us today, Renata, and we'll see you on the Soul Sisters chat.
Thank you so much for having me. Only you two make me do these kind of things, but love you.